Deaton, or do you agree with the current laws regarding background checks and the type of weapons that may be sold?
Yes, I do. I do not feel there should be any change with respect to the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is going to continue to be litigated every time an incident like this happens. Again, I think most of the parties here have hit on the issue. The real issue here is a mental health problem. And in Louisiana and other states, we've seen drastic cutbacks in the hospitals and expenses spent on the mentally ill. We need more mental health treatment. Invariably, every one of these instances involves someone with a mental difficulty. It's sort of like somebody who drives a car. I mean, a car can be a dangerous instrumentality, but if you're reasonable and do it right, it's not problematic.
Okay, Mr. Deaton, thank you again. Gentlemen, by a show of hands, are you now or have you been in the past a member of a sporting or shooting organization? Okay, our four candidates in the middle. So we'll start on this end. What organization and why do you support it?
I am a member of the National Rifle Association and a member of the Coastal Conservation Association. I do believe, again, in the Second Amendment, I do believe that folks in America have a right to have access to those kind of opportunities. I believe in terms of the CCA, the ability to conserve. I'm a member of Ducks Unlimited. I believe that Louisiana is a sportsman's paradise, and in a variety of ways. I believe in conservation. I believe that in many ways, if you have an opportunity to teach your boy how to hunt, you won't have to hunt for your boy. It's a great cliche down the bayou. I'm a gun owner, and I absolutely believe in those efforts.
State Representative Edwards.
I'm a member of the Florida Parish Skeeting Gun Association, which is a ski club right outside of Amite on the banks of the Tangipahoa River. I've been going out there all of my life. In fact, I'm a longtime board member and a two-time past president of that organization. I believe in the shooting sports. I believe in hunting and fishing. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I have been a licensed hunter in Louisiana for all of my adult life. I absolutely believe that it's part of our tradition, our culture in Louisiana, that we actually get out into the woods and enjoy what God has given us as good stewards always and good conservationists. But absolutely I believe in the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms. And I practice that in my family, in the way that I raise my family, especially my 13-year-old son.
And Senator Vitter.
Scott, I'm a member of the NRA. Love to go hunting and fishing with Jack, our 13-year-old boy. It's a great way to connect, just spend time with him. And in fact, recently I also went alligator hunting with one of my daughters, who's 18. Out of the blue, she said before she was leaving for college, Dad, I want a father-daughter day. And of course I said, great, you name it, I'm there. It's exactly what any dad wants to hear. And then she surprised me, said I want to go on a gator hunt. So we did, and we had a great time. But it's a great way to connect with our kids. I've also worked with many of these organizations throughout Louisiana, CCA, Ducks Unlimited. Very proud that I just was awarded Legislator of the Year by Ducks Unlimited nationally because of my work on their priorities at the national level, which is absolutely going to improve conservation, the number of ducks, the opportunity to enjoy those sports and that pastime in Louisiana and elsewhere.
Lieutenant Governor Darden.
I'm a member of the NRA and believe in the advocacy that they've provided for gun owners across America, and also their activities relative to hunting and fishing, which is obviously one of the great passions that we have in Louisiana. And I've spent a lot of time over the course of the past 5 years talking about all of our great passions in Louisiana. And we have people coming from all over the world to enjoy the natural beauty and the abundance that we have in Louisiana. And hunting and fishing are a big part of what makes Louisiana a magnet for people who want to be here. And I think it's important to support organizations who advocate on behalf of those type of things that help Louisiana. We've had 3 record-breaking years of tourism under my leadership, with 28.7 million people coming to our state, spending over $800 million while they're here. That goes into the state treasury. That's money that no Louisianians paid. And our state, perhaps better than any others, can celebrate the wonders of nature for hunting and fishing, and any group that's going to support and promote that, I want to support and promote them as well.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. 4 out of the 6 of you agree on that topic. Last month, Governor Bobby Jindal moved to cancel Planned Parenthood's Medicaid contract in Louisiana after an anti-abortion group released a series of undercover videos that show the organization's doctors discussing the donation of fetal tissue for medical research after abortions. Recently, the U.S. Senate rejected a short-term spending bill that would defund Planned Parenthood by a vote of 52 to 47. Clearly strong feelings on both sides of this issue. So we'll begin with State Representative Edwards on this question. Where do you stand on Planned Parenthood, and what do you say to those who argue you're taking other much-needed services away from women if the organization is defunded because of abortion concerns?
Well, first of all, thanks for this question, Scott. The videos are very disturbing. To have those doctors, those representatives of Planned Parenthood speaking so cavalierly and matter-of-factly about such sensitive issues very much disturbed me, and I think the vast majority of people across the country and in the state of Louisiana. So I agree that we need to have an investigation. It needs to be a thorough investigation of Planned Parenthood around the country and certainly here in Louisiana to determine what the practices are here and whether they're in violation of the law. I believe we should let that investigation play out and learn all the facts. And one of the facts are that Planned Parenthood does provide preventative health services, cancer screenings, breast exams, vaccinations, and other needed health services. And the only thing that I'm going to suggest is that before we close Planned Parenthood down, because we know that in Louisiana they're not providing abortions, we've got to make sure that there are alternative locations available for the people of Louisiana to receive those same services.
Thank you. Commissioner Argel.
You know, as one of 9 kids and the father of 5, I am 100% pro-life. Those videos are, in fact, very disturbing. And as far as I'm concerned, Planned Parenthood has lost its privilege to provide services in America when you do that with fetal tissue. Now, having said that, I would move to cut off their contracts and make sure that they are, in fact, defunded. But we take a look at the other services that are provided by Planned Parenthood. There are 137 community clinics in Louisiana. Planned Parenthood does not have a monopoly on providing services like breast screening and other services, cervical cancer screening. You know, that is not the only place we can do it. I would move to make certain that the other facilities in Louisiana have the funding that they need. It should not simply be a monopoly for Planned Parenthood to provide these services.
Senator Vitter, you're also 100% pro-life. Do you share the beliefs you've heard so far?
Absolutely, and I not only share them, Scott, I've been fighting to defund Planned Parenthood for years before these videos surfaced. I think that's pretty important and pretty significant. That's why I'm the only candidate here who received the endorsement of National and Louisiana Right to Life, the only one. 100% lifetime voting record. Very, very different than many of my opponents, including Mr. Darden, who voted 6 times for abortion and against life. 6 times. That's on the Louisiana Right to Life website. That's a failing grade when you look at all of his votes. So I've been fighting this fight for years, and we need to absolutely defund Planned Parenthood, and we need to absolutely cancel all contracts in Louisiana. And I have a news flash for John Bell. Says no abortions of Planned Parenthood in Louisiana. They're building a huge abortion mill in New Orleans as we speak. And your president, that you voted for twice, that you were a delegate for his re-election, not just his initial election, is absolutely doing everything he can to continue to fund this abhorrent organization.
Mr. Edwards, do you care to respond?
Well, yeah. He says he's got a 100% voting record, and that's clearly different from ours. Well, I don't know how 100% is different from 100%. My voting record is 100% consistent with the Louisiana Right to Life positions on the issues that I have voted on in 8 years in the legislature. And my position on those issues is informed by my Catholic Christian faith. And I'm not sure how he can say that his position is superior to mine when 100% is 100%.
Scott, if I can respond, I'll tell you exactly
30
how.
seconds, and then we'll move on.
John Bell Edwards actively supported Barack Obama for president twice, voted for him twice, was a delegate for Barack Obama, not in the Hope and Change election of 2008, but when he clearly should have known better in 2012. Now, if that is consistent with a pro-life voting record, God help us, because then nothing means anything. That is completely contrary to fighting and standing up for Louisiana values, which start with life.
And the last word in 15 seconds.
Well, yeah, I guess we could keep going back and forth. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I am a Democrat. I supported the president. I have issues with many of the positions taken by the president. This is one of them. I'm not a single-issue voter. I vote my conscience based on an array of issues. And I will tell you, while I did vote for the president, I have never voted for David Vitter.
Okay, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Darden, your record was attacked as well by Senator Vitter.
Well, Desperate Dave is at it again, lying not only in these multi-million-dollar commercials that he's running on TV, but here in forums like this. The answer to your question is, I do believe Planned Parenthood should be defunded. Those videos are outrageous and horrendous. I have not voted for abortion 6 times. I did get graded on some votes dealing with cloning that were very controversial over whether or not there was going to be stem cell research continuing in Louisiana. So it's inaccurate to say that I voted for abortion 6 times. It's the same kind of misrepresentations that you're seeing on TV right now. One that is particularly outrageous, I'll be happy to talk about later on, that you'll see about my travel, because my travel has resulted in more international visitors coming to Louisiana than any time in our history. Successful tourism numbers, all related to trips I made to bring people to Louisiana. And it's outrageous for him to accuse me of having the state pay for my wife and other people to go overseas. That's absolutely false, and it's the kind of misleading things you're going to see from Senator Vitter, who's now getting desperate in this campaign.
And to be clear, you called Senator Vitter a liar.
Yes.
Okay,
Scott,
Senator
if
Vitter,
I
would
can
you like to respond?
respond?
Yes.
First of
30
all,
seconds.
Jay Darden's voting record on abortion is clear, and it's right here. This isn't from me. This is from Louisiana Right to Life, and it's voting for abortion, and it's voting against life 6 times. And this will be on our website, and it's crystal clear. That's a very different record than what I have.
Put it on your website, and it is not accurate.
Also, with regard to travel, that's also documented with state documents. And at the end of the ad he's referring to, it sends everybody to a website. They can judge for themselves. They can look at all the documents. They can look at all the facts.
We'll see if we can get to that later.
I encourage voters to do
May I
that.
say something on the life issue?
And you're next. I'm going to give Lieutenant Governor Darden the last word on this in 15 seconds, and then we'll move on.
I can't wait for you to go to the website and see those documents. I can't wait till you see the documents. We'll show you where both trips for me cost about $11,000, and that the $34,000 number that Senator Vitter cites is every nickel that Jay Darden spent on travel during the 5 years I've been your lieutenant governor.
No, it's not.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
somehow
Absolutely
this
not.
evolved into travel, but we'll get back to the original question about Planned Parenthood, and should it be defunded, and where do you stand on this issue, Mr. Deaton?
Thank you, Scott. First of all, let me say I formerly served on the steering committee of an organization called Louisiana Lawyers for Life. It was an activist organization that actually litigated and tried to prevent abortions in this state. I was on the steering committee of that. With respect to Planned Parenthood, let me say this much. I want to follow, in effect, what Jeb Bush did in Florida. He proposed legislation to outlaw Planned Parenthood in Florida. Once I'm elected governor, I intend to do the same thing here in Louisiana.
Mr. Deaton, thank you. Reverend Odom.
Well, I would have to say I agree with Representative Edwards that we need to have all of the facts first before we can say what will be beneficial to the people of Louisiana.
Have you seen the videos? Are the videos facts enough in your mind, or do you need to see more?
I have seen part of a video. It did grossly upset my stomach. However, you're asking for a conclusive answer to one piece of evidence. I believe there needs to be a thorough investigation into the matter.
For the record now, have all of you seen the controversial videos that we've referenced? Everybody raise your hand so we can see it. Okay, so everybody has seen those videos. Thank you for that question. Now let's move on to this one. Just hours ago, Oregon became the 4th state to permit the recreational use of marijuana. The other 3 are Colorado, Washington, and Alaska. Colorado was the first state to legalize marijuana. In the law's first year, the state took in $53 million in revenue with a 28% sales tax. Another show of hands now. Have any of you smoked or otherwise ever used marijuana? Mr. Odom, that's all? Okay. Representative Edwards, we'll begin with you then. And we'll get back to you, Mr. Odom, for, do you want to reveal how you used marijuana, recreationally or medicinally? Before we move on.
It was recreational.
Recreational. Okay, so Representative Edwards, do you support passage of a recreational or medical marijuana law. And in referencing the medical marijuana law, we know there's been one on the books for 24 years or so, but it just hasn't been able to be dispensed. So do you support passage of recreational, and do you support loosening the restrictions on the medicinal marijuana?